hello everybody out there in YouTube land. So today I'm taking a look at the top 15 DC comic book covers by George Perez. Now George Perez has won many awards for his artwork, including Eagle Awards in 1979, 1980, 1986, and the year 2000. He won an Inkpot Award in 1983, and he has won 2 Jack Kirby Awards in 1985 and 1986. For more on George Perez, you can see my video profile I did on him, and I will include the link for that in the description box. So I had a very tough time choosing these. George Perez has a very large body of work, so even though I'm focusing just on his DC covers, there were well over 100 to choose from. I gave it a lot of thought, and I got some advice from a couple of my friends, and ultimately I ranked these based on how influential they are, how complex the art is, and how well they are drawn in my opinion. Now, he's a master artist, so everything he draws is well drawn, so this list is ultimately my opinion, and if you would have preferred to see some different covers in this list, let me know down in the comments. George Perez has many great covers, and there were so many more I wanted to include. So starting off at number 15, we have JSA number 82 from April 2006. George Perez did the cover on this, and he also did the interior art penciling. It has Gentleman Ghost as the villain here, who looks like a well-dressed version of the Headless Horseman. I haven't read this comic, so if you have, feel free to let me know in the comments what you thought of it. So, at number 14, we have DC Blue Ribbon Special Digest, number 19. This is from March 1982. It contains 4 reprints of Doom Patrol stories, including My Greatest Adventure, number 80, and that was published originally in June 1963, and that was the first appearance of the Doom Patrol, so that's really neat. And it also includes the issues Doom Patrol number 86, 90, and 91. At number 13, we have New 52 Superman, number 1. It's from November 2011. Now this issue I actually happen to own and have read, and I really like. I've done a review on it, which I will include a link for in the description box, and overall I really like this cover, and as a friend pointed out to me, it really shows the power of Superman, and also it is the first appearance of New 52 Superman, so that makes it a pretty important issue. At number 12, we have Crisis on Infinite Earths, number 9, from December 1985. This issue is titled Warzone, and this cover, I counted, contains over 40 different villains from the DC universe. Probably the most characters I've seen on any one comic book cover, but it's done so well you can distinctly make out each character and identify who everyone is, which is pretty amazing. I often see comic book covers that will have maybe 8 or 9 characters on it, and they all overlap, and it's just not very good. So George Perez was truly a master artist, and he still is. He still draws. He does art, primarily commissions and things like that. He goes to comic conventions. I don't know if he's actually drawn for any comic book companies in the last 5 or 6 years. So at number 11, we have this really awesome cover. It's for Amazing Heroes number 106, and it is from November 1986. Now, one of the characters George Perez is really well known for drawing is Wonder Woman, and he did a whole run of Wonder Woman comics in the 80s, and he's really famous for that. Now, I particularly like this cover. Even though it's not specifically a Wonder Woman cover, I actually found it to be one of the best covers he did featuring Wonder Woman. And I also found the Spanish cover, which came out about a year later, and is reworked. The cover is reworked from the original, and I actually like it better. I think it's really awesome looking. So that's number 11, and now we are in the top 10. At number 10, we have Tales of the Teen Titans, number 44, from July 1984, and it is titled The Judas Contract. Now, as you may or may not know, DC recently released an animated movie of the same name that follows the same story arc. And another fun fact, George Perez Perez, along with the very famous writer Marv Wolfman, actually created the Teen Titans. So not only did he do this art, but they are original creations. Although a character like Dick Grayson obviously existed before the creation of the Teen Titans. What I mean is they created the team, the Teen Titans, and they also created some original characters for it, such as Cyborg, who's become very well known and has his own movie coming out in 2020 and has moved on to become a member of the Justice League. So at number 9 we have Superman in Action Comics, number 651 from March 1990. This issue features Superman versus Maxima. It's a really great cover, I like it, and it also has interior penciling done by George Perez along with Carrie Gamble. So if you happen to find this issue, it has George Perez's art throughout, not only the cover but the interior. So that's really great. Superman is my favorite superhero, and I really like this one. Moving on, at number 8 we have Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, number 6. Now, Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, the cover is by George Perez, of course, but the character of Amethyst was created by Dan Mishkin and Gary Cohn, along with the artist Ernie Colon. The series tells the story of a teenage girl named Amy Winston who discovers that she is the orphaned princess of the magical gem world. Amy learns that an evil ruler called Dark Opal is out to destroy her, and she travels to Gemworld to overthrow him. Most comics were purchased by boys and men, so this kind of seems like one they were trying to pitch to female readers, which is perfectly fine, and I'm sure, it can be read by either gender. One thing I thought was really good about it is this flying horse, this Pegasus unicorn type thing she's riding on, is really well drawn, and often people, when they draw horses, they don't look quite right. Also, the background is really good. I don't know if it's a modern thing, but I often see backgrounds, even on covers, that are really mundane. They don't have background buildings or anything like this one does. And also, it's a little hard to tell in this picture, but the way he has drawn things to emphasize how shiny they are is really good, and I would really like to see this cover in person. I think the whole run, all of the covers I looked at, is really amazing, but I particularly like this one because she is flying, and I'm a big fan of flight, and it's amazingly well drawn. So, at number 7, we have Amazing Heroes, number 66 from March 1985. In this issue, it's a look at the secrets behind DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths, and as you can see there's Harbinger in the foreground, and I really like how she is drawn, and you can actually see in the stars in the background the Monitor, so that's very artistic, and this is a personal favorite of mine. And on the left hand side you can see the multiple Earths representing the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that is this issue. I believe it fills in more of the story on what happens in Crisis on Infinite Earths. I haven't actually read this issue. I've read Crisis, of course, but this is one I would like to track down and get more information on, particularly as I like the character of Harbinger. Alright, moving on to number 6, Justice League of America, number 213. Now, this issue is really amazingly well drawn. It's hard to tell, perhaps, in the picture here, but it's got an amazing amount of depth. And you can see Red Tornado in the foreground, and a little further back you can see Batman and Green Arrow. And behind them you can see the stars in the constellation forming a figure, a human figure. So that's really amazing, the depth of it and everything. And it's a very busy cover with multiple characters and a lot going on. But as you'll notice, none of the characters overlap each other. And that is a trick, I believe, I don't know for a fact, but I believe artists often do, is they will have their characters overlap each other so you don't have to draw as much. In particular, they will overlap the hands or the feet. So those are things people don't like to draw so much. And that isn't the case here. Every single character fits their full body. And I don't know the backstory on this issue, so if you've read it, let me know down in the comments. And another thing about the Justice League of America is George Perez did a lot of the covers for the JLA, and they're all really amazing. I actually had a hard time weeding them down, and in fact, I could have made a top 15 list just of the top Justice League of America covers by George Perez. And I might actually go ahead and do that sometime, because there were quite a few I wanted to include, but I just didn't have room in the list. So moving on to number 5, we have a very famous storyline here, Infinite Crisis number 1. Now, this is actually the variant cover. George Perez did variant covers for every single issue in Infinite Crisis, and and it's a very important storyline. And the cover itself, you can see, has an incredible amount of detail. You see Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, along with Spectre and others, but in the background you can see all sorts of characters and figures. You know, the entire cover's full. He doesn't waste any space. There's no dead space, there's no blank, boring color or anything like that. It's all really well drawn. So, moving on to number 4. This is actually one of the most famous covers in all of comic books. I don't know if I would say it's the most famous, but there's certainly an argument to be made for that. So, it is, of course, the death of Supergirl, and it is Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 7 from October 1985, and this issue was titled Beyond the Silent Night. It's a really amazing cover, particularly because it conveys a tremendous amount of emotion, and it's very sad, but it's iconic for that. And when this came out, people weren't used to superheroes dying like today, after we've had the death of Superman, and, you know, the Flash has died and come back a few times and everything. So back then in 1985, when this came out, it was actually a very shocking cover, and this is the original Supergirl here, so it really blew people away when it came out in 1985. And another thing about the background, you know, George Perez always does these awesome backgrounds. You can see dozens upon dozens of figures in the background, and you're able to identify them as well. I can see Wonder Woman, Batman, Dr. Fate, and many others. So that's a really great cover, and it's very iconic. Now we're in the top 3. Number 3, another Justice League of America cover. This one is number 217, and I really like it. Of all of the Justice League of America covers by George Perez I checked out, this one is my favorite. Once again, it's a very busy cover, but none of the characters really overlap. They overlap a tiny bit, but mostly, you know, that's just the way it had to be done, and it isn't done in a cheap way to make it so he didn't have to draw as much and do as much work. As always, the entire cover is covered. He's got stars in the background to fill that out, and I really like how he's got Adam all small standing on top of the barcode there. And Superman's looking tremendous, and Wonder Woman and Hawkman as well, like Santana. That is the Justice League of America. So, moving on, we have number 2. Now this cover I actually really like. I think it's really beautiful, and if you are a fan of Raven, I'm sure you agree. Honestly, I should give a lot of credit to the inker on this one. I don't know if George Perez did the inks, but normally he just does the pencils. In any case, the drawing itself is incredibly detailed if you look at the background. You know, a lot of times people cheap out and they just draw the figure and kind of just draw some random crap in the background, but this is really well drawn. You can see Trigon, her father, is on the left-hand side there, and it basically has got things from her past all around her there. And as I said, the colors are really amazing. I like it a lot. It's all purple and white, so that's really great. We got Tales of the New Teen Titans, number 2, Raven. And if you've read this one, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. So, we're up to number 1. And, of course, it is Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 12. And this issue is the final issue in Crisis on Infinite Earths. It came out in March 1986, and this issue is actually titled Final Crisis. And that's not to be confused with Grant Morrison's books of the same title. This is another cover where it has a lot of characters. You can see all of these superheroes fighting the Anti-Monitor, who, of course, is the big bad villain in the DC universe. And you can see very many heroes. This one has a tiny bit less characters than Warzone. I counted them, but there is almost 40 as well. And you can make out everybody. There's Superman, Wonder Woman, the other Wonder Woman from Earth 2, Harbinger, Dr. Light, the female Dr. Light, is riding on the energy beam there on the right-hand side, and she's in all black with a white cape, and it's really great. I like it. And the city itself in the background is really well drawn, and oh, you can even see the Pariah there wearing all green at the very bottom in the middle. So that is the top 15 comic book covers by George Perez. I know he's done a lot of work for Marvel as well. He's very famous for having done lots of Avengers covers. So maybe sometime in the future I'll do the top 15 covers of George Perez from all industry, including Marvel as well as DC. Well, that's it for now, and as always, thank you for watching, and if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe.
End of line.